Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where Kahuna and I have got the TNT takes for you on Survivor 44, episode 11 power rankings. That's right. In this age of alliances, Kahuna, or I should say the non age of alliances in Survivor, it doesn't exist anymore. There's one
Mhm.
alliance you can always bank on, and that is the Kahuna and Chris alliance when it comes to power rankings. How are you doing today?
Unless Yeah, good, mate. Much better than last Sunday where I left the alliance abandoned for an episode of the challenge review, but I'm back and I'm feeling strong and feeling fit. Um, Much better to sort of go through the power rankings this week for sure.
Yeah, listen, you did such a great job last week filling in for me when I was traveling. I obviously quickly had a look at it while I was looking for a taxi at Orlando Airport, and I saw you and Jake on there. Everybody told me you guys did a great job, and I went to go listen to it afterwards, and I thought, stellar job to you, Kahuna. Hats off.
Thanks,
And
man.
a lot of people said to me afterwards, don't work Kahuna too hard. If he's not feeling well, tell him not to do the power ranking. So I'm glad to see that you're back up on your feet and you're doing better.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was Chris pushing me too hard in the sweatshop of TNT Studios. Apparently, no, I have a chronic condition that I get an infection in my leg, and it just makes it really painful, and you get a couple of shivers and stuff. But it only lasts a couple of days, and then you're pretty good after that. So, yeah, I'm here. I'm happy.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy to have you back. I'm very happy to have the crew back here, you and me, to talk about the power rankings for this week. But before we get into it, let's say hello to everybody here in the live. We've got Chris back as always. Chris, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. Danica as well, back as well. Hello. Christian saying it's his birthday today as well. Well, happy birthday, Christian. I feel very honored that you are taking time from your birthday to jump on the live and to spend some time with both myself and Kahuna. So yeah, he's got
Let
his
me let me
own top six as well,
let
or
me ask
final
you a
six rankings.
question.
So
Let me throw a question out. I did this when I got control with the microphone, and I discovered the Danica B Danny Cab differential. Can I ask
yes,
another one that I've always wondered about?
go for it.
Is Christian Gal a guy named Christian Gal or a girl who's a Christian gal?
Good question.
I've always in my head. I see them. I go and I'm always wondering. And you go one way, and I'm like, oh, I wonder.
Right, yes, Christian. So let us know because
Yeah.
Kuhuna's interested. Are you
Sorry,
guy
it's just my
Christian
brain.
or female Christian? Because I've never thought about it. You see, the thing with me, Kuhuna, is I just let it ride. I just keep going, and
Yeah,
sometimes
what?
I don't think about
I
these
get
things.
stuck. I'm like, what is it? I obsess. It's from the back in the day when like internet usernames were like everything, right? And one of
Yes.
the reasons why I'm Kahuna today is because it stuck with me so long ago that it kind of stayed. And every time I see a username on screen, you kind of have to figure out like what does it actually say, because it can get you in trouble with some of the names that people have come up with as well.
Yeah,
You
yeah. Now, our audience has been always very friendly. I've never gotten in too much trouble with them so far, so that's always good. But we'll probably get that clarity pretty soon. Dolores, welcome back as well. Jay, welcome back here in the live as well. Gabe, welcome in the live. Jake, welcome in the live as well. It'd be interesting to know what your thoughts are on our rankings by the end of this as well. Good job as well, Jake, with Kahuna last week. Really enjoyed listening to the two of you sort of go through the episode. And who else do we have here just before we start getting into it? Christian is laughing, and Kuna is a super.
Mysterious.
How do you pronounce this? It's sloth, sleuth,
Sleuth, super sleuth,
sleuth.
like a
Okay,
detective.
there we go. Okay, so I was just going to say, because my brain, that's every now and again, you might not know this, but English is my second language. So every now and again, a certain word will catch me out. And that word caught me out. So now I know. I'll bank that one away. Dolores is saying, Kahuna, back in the AOL days, I was P-Soul. So I understand the back in the
See?
day and the nicknames. This is before my time. I don't know anything about this AOL days. Like, is it like Microsoft Messenger or something?
Yeah, yeah, it was.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it here, Kahuna. Let's get into the rankings here. Overall, what a great episode! And obviously, I took inspiration from the Great Carolyn with the title of this specific stream here for today. And that was my favorite moment, by the way, Kahuna, of that episode was where she got pissed off at Jeff. And Jeff was like, "Are you angry at me now?" And she's like, "Yes."
That is
It was so good. It was so good.
fine.
I feel like she's the only one that could get away with that.
Yeah, probably because we saw again, like even though she expressed that she legitimately was mad, again it just got laughed off, and not
Yeah.
many like imagine if there was like I don't know, like a Brandon this season or some like an intimidating dude or even Danny or something like who's an MMA fighter. If you look at Jeff very seriously, say yes, I'm mad at you, it wouldn't have the same vibe. It doesn't come across the same way, you know.
No, no. And obviously, we're going to be talking quite a bit about Carolyn when we talk about the power rankings. So we get to her. A lot of love here for Carolyn in the live. Jared, welcome to the live. It's the first time I've seen you in one of these lives. We always love seeing new faces. Saying Carolyn is the best. Gabe loves Carolyn as well. Danica saying our usernames are from back in the dial up days. I remember dial up. I wasn't on the internet too much back then. All I remember was whenever I try to get on to download music from LimeWire, my mom would yell at me to say, "Get off the line," because I want to phone Gran or something, and she couldn't phone out. I remember that. Georgette, welcome here as well to the live, saying, "I love Carolyn." A lot of Carolyn love here. Dolores is saying, Carolyn asking Danny, "Hey, is that the real plan?" Was epic. Yeah, 100%. Carolyn was onto it this episode. She was seeing things the rest of them weren't seeing. And once again, just proving that she is a better player than what a lot of people have given her credit for up until this point of the game. But I do think that it's going to put a target on her back moving into next week now, which is where the real danger for Carolyn comes in next week moving forward. Can she maintain this pace now? Because Survivor, Kahuna, is really a game of managing your threat level at the end of the day. And many big players in the last couple of seasons, and I know you haven't watched 42 and 43, but we've had two really big players in those seasons not manage their threat level too well towards the end game and get snuffed out around number 5, number 6, which I'm fearful that Carolyn could be that person now that Yam Yam is taking notice of her as well.
Yeah, and I mean it's I think threat management to a certain extent is kind of what caused Danny's downfall as well, and why we're saying goodbye to him is that not necessarily threat management, but the arrogance, the cockiness, thinking, pushing everyone around and where they want to go, and it just doesn't work when you have a group of people that are, adults in their own right and have their own agency, want to do their own thing, and yeah, like you couple that with his physical capabilities, even though he hasn't won yet, threat management is a very real thing. Carolyn's done it maybe a little bit too well. And now when we see that veil come off, it hints at something dangerous around the corner, which is scary for us.
Yeah, Jared, thank you so much there for the donation of $4.99. We really appreciate it. Says thanks for the welcome. Excited to be here. The donations, obviously, whenever someone does that, goes straight back into the channel here as we continue to grow it. I did, by the way, before we get into it, I know we're sort of holding off from getting into the power rankings quite a bit, but I did a collaboration with Once Upon an Island this week as well. We spoke about Survivor's unpopular opinions. And there was myself, Russell Muscle, Flynn Masters, Idled Out, and Once Upon an Island. I hope I didn't miss anyone there. We all had our own unpopular opinions that we had on there. And since then, we've just gone over 1,800 subs here on the channel. So I'm sure we got a few subs from Once Upon an Island as well. So if anybody is new from the Once Upon an Island channel, welcome here. We love to talk about all things Survivor, The Challenge, and Amazing Race. And pretty soon, Kahuna will also be talking about $1 Million Island for Australia. So we're going to continue to add more and more shows here as well. But let's get into this rankings here, and how we're going to do the power rankings is, for those that are new to the show, we've got 3 categories. So if you're on the edge, we think that you're probably going to go home next. If you're in the spy shack, we feel like you're not quite having a winning game at this point, but you're also not having a losing game. We're kind of on the fence ourselves in regards to where you could go. And I know that for people that are looking at this, they might be thinking, why the hell is Carson there? And I've got to be honest, Kahuna, even I questioned why we put him down in Spy Shack after this last episode, because he, at one point was our number 1 front runner, still ranked 3rd overall, but definitely still in with a chance. So I think when we start talking about Carson, we might modify where he's sitting at the moment. But we do have one thing right, at least from last week, and that is that Mr. Danny, who was on the edge coming into this. We actually called it. He is next out in the game here. What's your final thoughts on Danny and his game? Do you think that Danny is going to become maybe one of those forgotten characters when it comes to Survivor, or do you think we see Mr. Danny back out there again, Mr. De Niro himself?
I'll never forget him. One, because of the De Niro face, as cringe as that was, and then he's the first person to ever get the attention of Jeff and then drop a fart on TV like that, and that will stick in my memory forever. But yeah, like Danny, I said it in the recap episode where I think it was Pride Cometh Before the Fall. A little bit too much hubris. He probably could have had the tools to be able to play the game well, but one thing that stuck out with me, which I thought was funny, in his first episode when we're doing all the intros, he said, I may come off as a bit of a jock, and that doesn't go well in the modern version of Survivor, so I'm going to overcompensate and be overly nice, and it didn't work. He was actually the jerk on the season, and that's okay. Like, as far as TV characters go, you need friction, you need villains, and he's not necessarily villains, but he was certainly like, you know, the dickhead out there kind of thing. That is like, it's okay. It adds a little bit of zest for the show. It adds a little bit of levity and yeah, like something like you definitely need it.
Listen, if Danny this season was like the dickhead, or he was the villain of the show, then the show has really fallen, because we used to have spicy villains back in the day. He's not a spicy villain, you know what I mean? Like, he's more like this is the best we can do now if he was the villain of this season, and it's not good enough. Like, I think somebody in the unpopular opinion said, we really need villains back on the show, people we can really dislike. There was a really good behind the scenes clip from this week where Danny and Carolyn actually spoke on the island after the vote, because Carolyn was obviously quite upset when she didn't get to keep Franny in the game, and Danny went out to go and talk to her, and they spoke about their differences and how they approach the game. And she spoke about the fact that she's emotional, but she doesn't like it when people say that she's playing the game emotional, because that could be seen as a weakness. And he was really trying to open up to her and try and communicate with her, where she even admitted that he nobody out there is a bad person. He's not even a bad person. He's trying. It's just they don't really get along, and that's okay, because not everybody is always going to get along out on the island. That is what makes Survivor so good, is the fact that we've got different personalities from different walks of life that have to find a way to live together, to coexist out there on the island. But it was a good scene. I don't know if you had the ability to see that. I was lucky enough to see it through Paramount Plus.
I've not seen that, actually, no. So that'd be something I might have to go check out, if it adds a little bit of depth to the characters that we love, Carolyn especially.
Both of them. Yeah, both Danny and Carolyn. I thought it was a good scene that, obviously with the show going to 90 minutes, we're going to start seeing more of this moving forward as well. Let's have a look here at a couple of comments. I had someone ask, I believe, about Survivor UK, and have we heard anything about Survivor UK? Now, I know that Survivor UK is currently, I believe, being filmed, Dolores. So there's a few promos that have come out, but I don't think we get to see Survivor UK. And again, I don't have any inside information in regards to this, but just thinking based on the fact that they're filming, I don't think they've wrapped up at this stage in regards to that. We probably won't see it until the end of the year. So if we do see it, it's going to be closer to October, around that time frame, or early next year if they decide not to do it before Christmas. That's where I would sort of guess it will come into play. Let's see if there's anything else here from anyone else as we go through this. Dolores says, I thought Danny was trying to impersonate Tony. He just didn't quite get it. Yeah, listen, no one can impersonate Tony. And I don't blame him, because, I would want to do it as well. Who wouldn't want to impersonate Tony out there? Tony is just so much fun. We've had some international survivors that have come close. Like, I think Luke Toki of Australian Survivor is probably the closest we've seen to a Tony Vlachos type of character out there. But even they have got their subtle differences in the two players as well. Would you agree to that, Kahuna?
Yeah, it's not a hot take from the nullified take or the TNT take to say that people are different, right? But there are certainly archetypes, and Luke is probably the closest we've had to Tony, but Tony at the moment is just so unique and so untouchable. But that's okay. We get all these different awesome characters, and you get your Tonys, and you get your Carolyns, and you get your Jams, and you get your Georges and Lukes, and you get all these iconic characters, and you don't want it to be exactly the same because then they're just constantly compared to the other one.
100%. Gabe here says Danny was funny character to me. I guess since he's against Tika 3, he's seen as a villain because Edit wants us to root for Tika. That's right. Yeah, Tika is definitely the alliance that the Edit wants us to subtly get behind. Danica saying Danny has set himself up as a target for a while. The reward, trying to make the boys alliance and then being insulting to Heidi. Just some silly social mistakes he made that put a target on him. And also, he was very insensitive to Carolyn at times out there as well, and I think that sort of made him stand out a bit as well. Cashwash saying, yeah, I like Danny. The impersonation made me question how I felt about him, but yes, he's cool. Listen, the impersonation, I thought you had it spot on, Kahuna. It was like, he kept going, and Jeff was just like, I'm not going to break.
I'll let you hang yourself with this one, mate. You can die on this hill. If that's the one you want to die on, fine.
Dolores, bring on Luke or Chappies in the US. Jeff would be speechless, and I'm all for it. Yeah, I think it would be funny, but they would need, I feel like for Chappies, they probably need a translator over there to understand him with that thick South African accent of his, if he was to get onto the US show. But yeah, listen, my final thoughts on Danny was that he was a fun character. Definitely, kind of like I said from the beginning of the season, I feel like he would have done well maybe 10, 15 seasons ago. That type of archetype, the alpha guy running around looking for idols, would have done well. But there was definitely some soft skills that he lacked, like you kind of pointed out throughout the season, that other players such as Tony has had, which is what, and even a player like Luke, who we mentioned, has got those soft skills, which I just don't think Danny had it. But overall, I think, thinking about it in hindsight, I think Danny is going to be a forgotten character. I think that in his archetype, there are better players that we can bring back. And that's why I want you to go watch some of the previous seasons, Kahuna, so you can sort of see and know who I'm talking about. But I think Jonathan, if he's going to go up against Jonathan for a spot to come back, I think Jonathan will beat him every single time of the any season that they want to bring him back. I think Jonathan will come back before him. But let's start off on Jamie. She was at the bottom here for our rankings on the edge. Obviously, this episode, it's hard to talk about Jamie and not talk about Lauren at the same time because they're kind of like a duo. They're kind of like a package when it comes to it. They're the last two remaining players from Ratu. And they had an opportunity here to do what I believe would have been the right thing, and they didn't do it, which would have been to vote out Carson, right? They needed to put a vote on Carson. And by them not playing the vote on Carson here, they make Carolyn look like a little bit silly in some fans' eyes because she played the idol when she didn't need to and she could have held on to it. But I mean, those are the fans that are very results focused, right? Because at the end of the day, the right move was always to go after Carson. But for some other reason, they didn't end up putting their vote there. They end up putting their vote on Heidi, which means that Heidi now probably won't trust them either in the next round. So really, those three are so divided that you have to wonder, how does the bottom three, in my mind, come together? How do they rebuild trust to go up against the Tika 3, who's really dominating the season at this point?
I mean, I can't see how they haven't shown Lauren and Jamie with the ability to do what is required at this point. To be able to get Heidi on side, they've already ruined this very last episode by voting against her. And even if they could, they're going to go 3-3 against it. Like it seems like a sealed fate at the moment. And they really just rode the train into the, or rode the, I don't know, like just rode it into the ground. They were like, this is going to crash. You know, that meme that was going on around COVID and is still very popular where the dog's in the room full of fire and they're just like, this is fine. This is fine. They're like, okay, we'll vote for Heidi. Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like we don't get to see any of the thought process, the discussion, the logic as to why they went down this path. Was it actually them making that decision, or was the wedge that Carson was able to put in there, the influence that Carson had to steer the votes away from him onto Heidi, was that good? Like clearly there's something Tika has done that has really solidified that wedge. We saw in this episode that there was 4 strong talking: Danny, Heidi, Lauren, and Jamie Lynn. We have the numbers. We can actually do something here, and then still gets to the end, and then they just vote the other way. And I don't know why we're not seeing it yet.
Yeah. I mean, Chris is kind of putting the question out there, and this is something that I had to think about. And also, I watched the episode for a second time today before this, just after I got back from the Adventure Islands theme park.
Ooh.
Hey, I'm having fun over in Florida. What can I say?
Enjoy it, brother.
I had
That's
to like,
mad.
I had to throw it in there. But coming back and I was like, oh, I've got a bit of time to watch the episode again, and I watched it again. And Chris is asking, I'm wondering which Tika member convinced Lauren and Jamie to vote Danny. I hope we get that info next episode so we can learn about the social politics. Well, I believe that the vote that they placed was on Heidi, not Danny. If I'm
Yeah,
correct.
sorry. Yeah,
And
that's. But I meant like going with
yeah.
Tika's to split. I assume. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris said here to vote for Lauren and Jamie to vote for Danny, but I believe they both voted for Heidi.
Yeah.
And the person that they spoke with prior to this, when I rewatched the episode, was Carson. And they've had this relationship with Carson due to the Ratu days, right? So
Mhm.
I believe the reason that they didn't end up voting for Carson was Lauren actually said this to Jamie. And she said in the episode that I don't trust Danny as much as I trust Carson. So I do think that it came down to the fact that the vote was going to go to Carson, and both Lauren and Jamie felt like they could work with Carson still. So somehow he's still convincing them that he potentially could work with them. So again, it just shows us that Carson is playing a top tier game here at the moment, and he's just the person that everybody wants to work with. He always seems to be good, and he actually saved himself before Carolyn even had to play the idol, even though the edit kind of masked a lot of that from us. So it makes me wonder why that happened, why all the credit didn't go Carson's way. Because if he's going to be at the end, if he's going to win this season, this would have been a very big part of his story that needed to be told, which wasn't told.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Another tick in the edit column, if you will, for Carson's probably not going to get to the end. Interesting. That's a really good insight. I don't know what Lauren and Jamie are seeing. Like, even if Carson's, if they trust Carson more than Danny, like there's no room left now. There's nowhere to. If you think you trust Carson more than Danny, do you think Carson has you more than Jam and Carolyn? That's really the only math equation that needs to be done. I can't really trust Danny, but when it comes to the next step, is Carson putting us ahead of Jam and Carolyn? And maybe that speaks even more to Carson's game of how
Massively.
they've covered over that Tika alliance. Some people, we've seen it, and people have called it out. Franny, Danny, they've all said it. But maybe it's not as obvious on the beach, or maybe Jamie and Lauren is even worse than we give them credit for.
Yeah, well, the thing for me is, if this is true, which I believe it is, because like Gabe said here, they did show it to us on the episode. I rewatched it and I saw him talking to both of them. I
Yeah.
saw them having a conversation afterwards in which they decided and they said, listen, we don't trust Danny as much as we trust Carson. So if this is the case, right, then at this point, who's sitting the prettiest out of everybody? If we don't look at the edit, if we look at strategically, it's Carson, because he can go
Yeah.
with either the Ratu members or with the Tika members. And he sits pretty in the middle at this stage, with everybody wanting to work with Carson in the game. By virtue of that alone, you have to look and I would say, we're talking a lot about Carson. This was going to be a part of my whole battle with you when we talk about Carson, but I would put him straight back into the winning position. And in fact, I would put him possibly at this point, I would put him above everybody else because of just strategically his position, where he's sitting in the game. And I'm taking the edit out of it because the edit makes me doubt if he is going to win the show. But just where he's sitting and the fact that he survived this one time that they were coming after him, I have to say he's definitely in the sole survivor category. And for now, I would put him at the top. And we can talk about the others that are below him in a bit, and then we can argue if he should stay there or not. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it as holy crap, that's really fascinating. I didn't see the pieces align that way, but you're right. Like, just looking at the fact that it's always very helpful, the visual aid of having the power rankings in front of you, and when you move the little bits around. And when you had Carson in the middle there, I was like, he really is in the middle of these two. If he wanted to make that choice, like we've been shown tika 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 the entire time. But when you look at just the pieces on the board, he could very well go with Lauren and Jamie, take out a
Yeah.
Jam Jam next, and then that's fascinating. I'm just like, Lauren and Jamie have nothing, like zero, zero, zero. But if it hinges on Carson, what he does, that could be one of the biggest plays or like games in the history of Survivor.
Yeah, I mean that
I
is
don't think it'll
exactly what I'm
happen, to be
thinking.
honest with you, but I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's fascinating. I've never
Yeah,
even seen the board play out the way, because I'm just like, edit, give me the edit, like
yeah,
feed me what I need to know, Survivor. And
yeah,
you're
yeah.
looking at
No,
different stuff.
no, we can't just like I love the edit as much as you, but we've got to be impartial to the edit and look at strategically how he's playing the game, what people are saying, what are we seeing and what are we not seeing much of on the show, and we could be completely wrong, but I do think that most of the chat is agreeing with us here as well. Jared is saying that true, Carson has the best potential. Jay is saying Carson has to be the best player under 20 in Survivor history, or sorry, best player 20 years and younger. And yeah, I mean, there's not many of his age that have come onto the show and have done well. And he spoke a little bit about this as well, Kahuna, at Tribal Council, when he said coming into the game, he was still kind of trying to find himself and he didn't know how he was going to do experience wise. If he was going to play with people with a lot more life experience than him, how would he fit in? How would he relate to those people? And I know that this is a fear that Jake, I don't know if he's still in the life, that Jake himself has expressed a few times where he said, I'm quite young. I don't know how I would do if I was to go on the show and play, and if I had to play with people that are a lot older than me. So, yeah, definitely, I think that is something that sometimes can hold a young player back in the game. But Carson has just really strategically played a great game at this point. Danica is also saying Carson is doing a good jury management job. And Gabe is saying, after this move, Carson is in the sweet spot. So I think there's a lot of people agreeing with us that he potentially sits at the top. I do want to go back just before we get too far ahead of ourselves, which we've already gotten all the way to Soul Survivor, and that's not how we normally do it. But when we look at Lauren and Jamie here, I don't know if I've seen anything that have convinced me that they should move up, because I don't see them winning the game unless they sit next to each other at the end. Would you agree with me on that?
Oh, 100%. They can't beat anyone else in the jury at the moment. They can't pinpoint a single thing that they would have done, unless it comes in, like you said, if this is the big Carson play, and they can say we've been with Carson the whole way, kind of thing, since Ratu, and but it's not true. Like, they would get called out immediately. They've been on the wrong side of many a vote and looked foolish. Yeah, like they can't win. Like, if they're
Unless
sitting
they're next to each other.
and
It's got
unless
to
they're
be a
next to
final
each
two.
other. But I don't see that happen. Like, I don't know how that's going to play out either. Like, yeah. So, like,
I don't know either, actually, how that would play out. I will say one thing, and one credit that I will give Jamie is that she seems to be socially really good. And I know you guys made a lot of fun on the recap about the whole, doing the yoga out on the beach and all that kind of stuff. And I get it. I'm not the biggest meditation type of person myself. I would struggle with that stuff. But it does look like Jamie did sort of have the buy-in from all of her tribe mates when she did that, and they all sort of opened up to each other about their feelings out there, and they bonded on a certain level. So I do feel like Jamie does have the edit makes us look at her in a way where it makes her look like she is kind of like the goofy character that is high on herself, when I think she's just high on life and a very positive and bubbly person in real life, which to me, I love that someone's like that, but I think that could get a lot if it's constantly in your face. But I do think that from what I've seen, reading the body language of the people around her, they do love her. Lauren obviously is doing Lauren things out there. I mean, what is Lauren doing out there? Lauren's had less than an edit than Jamie. So based on that, I would actually just, if I had to be like finicky, I would actually move Jamie ahead of Lauren at this stage.
yeah, probably. I mean, Lauren, she's divorced. She's a single mum.
Yeah,
That's her thing. I don't know. That's what she can say, that she's overcome that in the game.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, she's at the bottom.
She's at the bottom, and it's listen. This everybody knows I've got, I don't look at it. I had my crush as Lauren. It's not about that. It's about let's be objective here and rank it as we see it at the end of the day. And let's have a look at what some of the people here are saying in the live. Christian saying, I think Carson is in the final, and I think he wins the final immunity, but the fire making could be his downfall. Well, yeah, we constantly see the fire in his glasses. Now, what does that mean? Is he going down in flames? Is he, going to lose the fire making challenge? Like, the editors are doing this for a reason. They're driving us crazy. I kind of now hope in an evil way that he does go to flames, because that would give me a satisfying conclusion to the storyline that everybody's been speculating about. It would feel like such a letdown, Kuna, after this whole season, seeing that and then it not happening.
Yeah, it also it's one of those interesting things when Jeff says there's no winners edit, don't worry about the edit and that sort of thing, and then they constantly do these little things of like flames in the glasses. And it would be cool if there was no fire making, just so we stop looking for it. If they go, look, we put this here as a red herring constantly, and you all like went for it and thought Carson fire. This is what we're telling you. Don't look at the edit. Just look. Just enjoy. Maybe like it would be funny if they actually did that, but it's not. It's definitely there. So yeah. Oh, by the way, Christian Gal did mention earlier. It's a dude named Christian. His last name starts with Gal.
I did see it.
I was like, good on you, Christian. Thanks for clarifying, mate. I was wrong on that one.
Every time I said he, now I feel okay with that. But Gabe says here that Jamie needs to pull what Simon didn't do to win. Look at Gabler. Impossible things can happen. Well, for me, Gabler wasn't like, for me and Jake, we predicted a Gabler win. 2-3 votes into the merge, we were like, well, we didn't fully predict it, but we saw it. We saw a possibility of Gabler winning. Yeah, we didn't rule it out. So for me, Jamie, we've ruled Jamie out since the merge. When we did the power ranking, she's never been higher than On the Edge. So I think it would be a bigger shock than a Gabler win in my mind, in any case. Jay says, why couldn't it be Jamie? She's met the most amount of people in the game, both Soka, Ratu's on the jury. She was on both Soka and Ratu. Maybe she was right to say she was the most important player. Well, you see, the reason for me, Jay, why I don't think it's Jamie at this point is that Jamie hasn't been on the right side of the vote very often in the game. And she had this thing in this episode where she said that, at the end of the day, we're all fighting to win this game. We all love each other and we're all bonding because of this experience. So socially, she is getting good vibes from them. And I think socially, she is doing good with her tribe mates. I do think that everybody genuinely likes Jamie. But she made a very important point of saying that this is not about that. This is a fight to prove who's the best player out there to win it at the end. That's kind of the edit that I got from it. And I don't think that she is that player. Like, if she sits next to most of the players above her, I would say Heidi, potentially there is still a possibility she could beat Heidi. But I actually think Heidi also, in my opinion, has had a better game than her, has done more things right. Plus, Heidi is sitting on some valuable ammunition at this stage, which is why I won't put her down On the Edge, and I would continue to put Heidi above her in Spy Shack because, Kahuna, everybody keeps forgetting Heidi's got an idol that I do think she's gonna play it in the next episode, surely. I think it's the last time she can play it.
At 6 or 5?
6, I think.
Yeah, well, there you go. She has to. Then she's safe. She can't possibly be on the edge of elimination unless she doesn't play it when you have to. So, yeah, that makes complete sense. Jamie,
I just want to... just before we start talking about Heidi, I want to read a couple more of the comments on Jamie, and then I'll give you an opportunity to say what you're going to say as well. Danica says, Jamie is adorable. She's sweet. I love that she's having a great time, but I don't see her winning the game. Agree 100% on all of that. Jared is saying Jamie has a great smile and definitely is positive with her tribe, but being nice doesn't win. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Lauren, sorry, she's got nothing. I'll laugh if fire moments amount nothing in it place. Yeah, if the fire moment turns into nothing, it would be mad. What has Jamie done to win? Exactly. That's what we're thinking. I just don't see it. But Akuna, final thoughts on Jamie before we move on to Heidi.
Jamie, like, as much as she might be socially liked and well liked within the group, they don't respect her game. Like, she's getting that same vibe that we see Carolyn get dismissed, except Carolyn's a little, like, it's happened more frequently because Carolyn is across the game more.
Mm,
Jamie's involved. We get Jamie on screen. She's interacting, and she was in but nothing is game related. It's yoga, it's friendly, it's social, and nothing is strategy, nothing is game, nothing is like driving anything related to, strategy. And that's
mm.
what people I think are noticing as far as yeah, she's lovely, yeah, she's great, but she's not playing the game.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that this group of players are going to respect the game too much towards the end. They're going to want to vote for someone that is going to be able to represent the season in a positive note and that played a good game. And as we move on here to the Spy Shack area where we've got Heidi at the moment in there on her own. Um, Heidi at this stage, we very late in the game, we got a footage package from home from her, and the whole thing about her being from Puerto Rico, moving from a very young age. We saw her practice fire at home on the homemade videos again.
Mm.
After having seen her make fire very quickly in the beginning of the game, so will Heidi and Carson be the two to make fire against each other? Another person people are speculating on and thinking that he could be making fire is Yam Yam. He could potentially also be that person because he was also seen to be the fire maker in Tika, the original Tika. So it's going to be interesting. I do feel like Heidi at this point, she had a very interesting edit where she voted against Danny. She was able to convince Danny that it wasn't her and that it most likely was Jamie or Yam Yam later in the game when Yam Yam tried to throw her under the bus. And Danny, he bought it, hook, line, and sinker. I've seen moments in Heidi's game where I can see that she's a player and that she strategically thinks about the game and how she needs to move forward. And I do still like Heidi. I do think she gets to the end. She still has somewhat of a story to tell. The problem for Heidi is she can't sit next to the three people above her. So I can't push her into that category because I do think the only players she potentially could pull a win against is the two players below her at this stage in the power rankings.
And so yeah, it was an interesting episode because she started out with the Danny vote, scrambled, tried really hard, like knowing that she made a mistake and trying to fix it. And then at the end of this episode, she's voted Carson and is on the wrong side of the votes again. When you say can't sit next to the three Tika, she's just voted against one of them. She could potentially be going next because they see, well, Lauren and Jamie, there's only two of them. We've still got the three. If she doesn't use that immunity idol this week,
No,
if
she'll use it.
Carson, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know.
This is her last. This is her last chance, and
Well,
Heidi doesn't. To me,
Jay in the
she doesn't.
comments said there's 5. You can play it at the final 5, not
Really?
final
Oh, it
6.
must be. Maybe I got confused with Australian Survivor because I know
Mm.
that. Okay, so Georgette said final 5 last
Oh,
time to play
Georgette.
idols. Okay, yeah, because I think it's Australian Survivor. Then that's final 6. I remember one of them's final 6. Well, and I wonder if she does end up risking it for another round, risking it for the biscuit. For me, at the end of the day, I do think she ends up playing it. I feel like there's too much heat on her right now.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that after Carolyn played an idol on Carson, she didn't feel any threat, maybe because she just copped votes in the previous rounds. And she had ice in her veins because if I had votes against me in
Mm.
the previous rounds, and I saw someone play an idol on the person that I voted for,
Voted
I,
for-
I probably would end up playing an idol, to be honest with you. So I
Yeah.
was very surprised that she didn't play it in this last round.
Yeah, really. It's like she's holding on to that, man. I hope she doesn't go home with it in a pocket. Just another idol not used effectively in US Survivor this season. But yeah, she's got it all ahead of her at the moment because the numbers aren't on her side. She doesn't have anyone really to work with. Like, so the two people that she could potentially work with just voted against her, like literally in that same episode. So she's definitely at the bottom. She's got to use that idol and try to use it effectively to what will best get her past the next sort of couple rounds and keep her safe. So I don't know. I don't know what her play is here.
Yeah, so Jay says she does have the tagline similar to Gabler, though, with her always talking about her magic wand, just like how Gabler always talked about hiding in plain sight. I do think that she's closer to a Gabler potentially than what a Jamie would be, because there were times within the game that I've said, I think Heidi could still win. I do think there's a story or a way for her there, but I do feel like her window of opportunity has closed down significantly in the last couple of weeks because unlike Gabler, she's got 3 players, I think, ahead of her at this stage in the game that could all win the game, and she's running out of numbers. So she cannot afford to make a wrong move. And the fear that I have for her here is that I don't know if she's got any trust with Jamie and Lauren moving forward, because they ended up both voting for her, and they've shown her now that they're more willing to work with Carson than her. So I do fear for her, and I do think she may be running out of options in regards to where she can go. Let's have more of a read here in the live. Gabe is saying, out of the non-Tikas left, Heidi does have the best gameplay. She just can't sit next to any of the Tika 3. Yeah, 100%. Jared saying Heidi has the probable best chance to win physical challenges. Yeah, probably. I mean, Lawrence also won one in the beginning somewhere. And then I do think Carson, is someone that could still win. Like, I mean, he's physically in pretty decent shape. So it depends on the type of physical challenge. And then obviously puzzles, he's just going to absolutely kill. Gabe is saying Heidi has to make a move with Lauren and Jamie next time, or she's playing for third after that. Yes, and that's the problem. I don't know if the trust is there. Jay's saying, yep, it was so gutsy of Heidi to hold onto the idol this round, but she should play it in a way that is aggressive, like getting all the votes on her, idling out Yam Yam, not hold onto it like Xander. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you've got to use it. The best players in the game use an idol as an offensive weapon, not a defensive weapon, and take out a big target by either hiding the fact that you've got it and that you're going to play it on yourself, which she has done, and trying to take all the heat, or predicting where it's going to go. But I feel like most likely she ends up playing it on herself. Chris says, I think Jay is talking about Jamie, not Heidi. Jamie is the one with the magic wand. All right, so still on the Jamie train. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see a Jamie win. I'm sorry. Speaking of Jamie having a magic wand, Chris Nardi. Okay. Yeah, I don't see Jamie. I'm sorry. I wish I could lie and say I see a way for Jamie. I
said that from the start though. Episode 1, the preview, I was like, she's a goofy joke like character. She's not serious.
Yeah. Danica's asking, will Carolyn's idol go back into play, or is it gone for good now? Normally when an idol is played, it goes back into play. And knowing that Jeff likes a lot of idols and things like that in the game, I wouldn't be surprised if they do go back and hide it somewhere. But I will say it's been refreshing since the merge. It's the whole thing is flipped on its head, Kahuna, because we've had almost 0 twists since the merge, and we've had all the twists in the beginning of the game, which is very interesting. It's almost like they tried to correct the fact that they threw too much in the beginning part of the game.
With the idols being put back into play, like I always thought it was like they replace an idol that's used, they put it back into play, but only for the tribe that it was sort of missing from. Once you get to merge, they don't replace multiple. Like there's usually only one.
They have in the past. So it depends. It depends on season to season. Obviously, don't have Jake's memory on the exact seasons, but I do remember there's been times where idols have been replaced, even if it was an idol that was held onto from pre-merge, from a tribe that they got it to going into a merge.
No, what I mean is they wouldn't go like there's 6 people left. They wouldn't put and one idol's still in play. They wouldn't then go put another idol out to be found when there's only 6 people left and 2 rounds left to potentially use it. That's what I'm like. I think they get the ratio right. You don't want like
no, they don't. Like I mean, that's why we had a Saree Fields being not voted out of the game, but advantage Geddon, too many advantages, and she ended up going home. So I don't think they're afraid of putting too much in there. I mean, Jeff's never afraid of that because he thinks it's good drama, like the more things you add into the game. But I mean, it's hard to know because they don't make it clear. I kind of feel like production make up these rules from season to season. Like some seasons they'll do it, some seasons they may not do it.
Yeah.
But my thinking is there's probably going to be something back in the game.
Okay. That'd be fun then.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if somebody else can find an idol out there as well. So,
because we've been saying like, twist free, we get to see the players actually play, the strategy involved, the politics, and see how that comes out. And it's been a great number of episodes. But we've also very emphatically said that Lauren and Heidi have got nothing at this point. So if there's going to be any change to this Tika domination right now, it has to be from some sort of twist or idol play or something like that. Because like the way or internal, but I mean,
we'll be talking about that in this next section now, because we've seen a little bit of next on Survivor, And the next two people we've got to talk about is Carolyn and Yam Yam. And it looks like Yam Yam is ready to betray Carolyn. We see next on Survivor, he's going up to Carson saying that I think that Carolyn can win the game now after doing such a flashy move in front of the jury and showing the jury that she potentially has more game than what they thought. So obviously based on that, people now are aware of Carolyn being a threat in the game. So I do still think that all three of the Tika players at this point, the sole survivor category, all three of them can win. The question now becomes, is Carolyn above Yam Yam or is Yam Yam above Carolyn? And I've got to say, it looks like Yam Yam is looking to pull the trigger first. He's looking to make a preemptive strike here.
Oh shit, yeah. Well, between the two of them, he would absolutely strike first. He would throw Carolyn under the bus. People said that in the review episode as well, that Carolyn feels stronger for Jam Jam than Jam Jam does for Carolyn. So yes, Jam Jam has a very good relationship with Carolyn, but she holds it nearer and dearer, much more than Jam Jam, which is a bad position to be in as far as that power dynamic goes between the two of them. Jam Jam definitely in the driver's seat and able to pull a trigger easier than Carolyn, but Carolyn, if she finds out, if she hears anything, if she gets that paranoid emotional side kick in, she'll go back at Jam Jam for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. Jared here says we need less advantage drama and more strategy drama. Yes, I agree with you, Jared, 100%. We both like the balance needs to be right. Like, we love advantages. We just need the right balance. And the balance was not right in the beginning of the season. I can tell you that much. Jay saying Lauren also said that Carolyn was playing dumb and that she was actually playing the game the whole time in the preview. Yep, exactly. Dolores here, I think her comment is one that I thought about as well, which is Yam Yam is being salty because Carolyn now outplayed him because he was not aware of that idol when, she played the idol at Tribal Council. So maybe that's making him feel like he knew that he could equal the playing field with her because she went against him once and he was out on the vote. And now he made Carolyn out on a vote where she was consistently on the right side of most of the votes, or except for Franny, I guess, as well. He probably thought that he had an upper hand against her going into a final three, but now she pulled a move that he was not a part of and he didn't know about.
Yeah, the potency of Jam Jam's Kill Bill revenge list is getting further and further back in the memory banks, and he's seeing that, yeah, I did have this thing where everyone I said was going home went home, and now Carolyn's, throwing getting a bit of shine as well. So maybe there is a little bit of, like, not necessarily jealousy, but strategic sort of thought process behind wanting to put someone out that's making big moves and outshining me a little bit. But I don't know, like, all three of them, I mean, next to Carson as well, does Jam Jam have that same problem? If he's worried about Carolyn looking like she might win, what's he thinking about Carson this entire time? That's what I wonder.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we just spoke about the fact that Carson seems to be the most well-connected out of the three of them. Like, he's got options. He can stay with them. He could go with Jamie and Lauren. In my opinion, this next episode will determine if Carson wins the season or not. Because I think for him to win, he needs to go with Jamie and Lauren to the end. He needs to turn on his TK3. But, he talks about the fact that he's playing this, villainous or strategic game, but I don't think he's got the heart. I think that Carson now, after Carolyn has given him his life in the game, or very close to his life in the game, because he would have been safe in any case, I feel like she probably bought his allegiance to a certain degree, and this is maybe where him being young may come into play, where if he was a 30-year-old Carson playing the game out there, he's had his heart broken a few times, he's seen how tough and rough life can get out there, maybe he actually makes the more hardcore decision. But I don't think Carson, young 20-year-old Carson, has the heart in him to cut both Yam Yam and Carolyn. But I do think if they're thinking about jury management, Carson should not be thinking about going in there with his friends. He should be thinking about, how do I go in there with the best chance to win? And I think that he beats both of Lauren and Jamie a lot more easily than what he would do with Yam Yam and Carolyn in the final three.
100%. Like, everyone in the comments has said that, yeah, what's Jamie done? What's Lauren done? They've both got nothing that they can actually get up and talk about with any sort of, accuracy, or like, it'd just be fine. Like, those tribal councils where they say, I did this, I did this, I did this, and everyone just calls bullshit straight away and looks through it. I don't even know what they could say that would be realistically, like they wouldn't even be able to say they just wouldn't be able to put anything out there against Carson. And that would actually be a fascinating thing, like where they can try to say what I have no idea what the argument would be, and that Carson would dominate next to the two of them. So that should be his play, and I never even saw it before today, Chris.
Well, here's an interesting question by Jay. He says, why get rid of Carolyn now? It makes no sense since she's never going to win an immunity challenge and she's probably not going to win the fire-making challenge. Best to keep it till the final four as a threat. Thoughts? I think the one thing about Carolyn that is scary is the fact that Franny loves Carolyn. And wherever Franny goes, I think Matt will go with the vote. So that's an automatic 2 votes there. I think Kahuna made a great case for if Jamie and Lauren doesn't get there, there's a potential that some of the women will go towards her as well. They connected out on that reward as the mothers. There was this mothers connection out there. So Heidi potentially could also go there. Plus, people have now seen that that she's a gamer. So if she gets potentially the 3 girls in the final and she gets both Franny and Matt, that's 5 votes. That's enough to win the game, which makes her a legitimate threat. I think that if Yam Yam wins the game, as much as it pains me to say this, and the edit has shown us that Yam, in my opinion, the edit is showing us, even in this last episode, what's Yam Yam's thoughts about the fact that they left Carolyn out? What's his thoughts about how he needs to get Carolyn back on side? We're being led into Yam Yam's thoughts, which to me is just a classic survivor winners type of edit. Like I really feel like I'm getting more from him, and the edit wants me to get behind him and be in on his plan than anybody else. And I think where Yam Yam wins the game, because I still haven't seen what makes Yam Yam more impressive than a Carson who he's worked closely with or a Carolyn that he's worked closely with. This is where he might do what Carson doesn't have the heart to do. He might make the move here against one of his Tika 3. And I think it's the right move for him, Kahuna.
It probably would be, to be honest with you. All 3 of those Tika people, if they want to win, should not be sitting next to Tika people. The problem is getting to the end so that you're with the other people before your other Tika people cut you. So it's interesting. But I mean, Jam Jam's resume over Carson and Carolyn, depending on what narrative you go for, right? It's all about the story. Is a dominant performance. I was always on the top. I was never in danger. I've been pulling strings from the get-go. And that's why I'm here. A more compelling story than I did struggle. I was at the bottom. I avoided votes. I really, really did the underdog thing, and I got back on top. And all the people that tried to take me out, I took all of them out one by one, and now I'm here. Like it just depends on what story the jury buys and how well you tell it.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, it also depends on who he's going to sit next to. So if he doesn't end up sitting next to Carson or Carolyn at the end, he hands down's got the best chance of winning this game, right?
Yeah.
And if we're thinking that potentially Carson could go out in flames against the Heidi, who's he sitting next to? Is he sitting next to a Heidi and potentially a Jamie or a Lauren at the end? Because I feel like he that's a cakewalk for him in that case. But yeah, let's read a few more of the comments here. Gabe saying Yam Yam, I think, is liked by the jury more than Carolyn. Even after Idol move, Carolyn can't sit next to Yam Yam or Carson. She's got to cut them to take all the credit. It's a tough call to make. I mean, obviously we constantly hear that Yam Yam is extremely liked and that, but like I just said, I do think Carolyn has got Franny. I do think Franny brings Matt, and I do think the mothers could vote for Carolyn, and that's 5 votes before they vote for Yam Yam. Maybe Heidi could go to Yam Yam with Danny. That's a possibility, which then puts Carson up there. But I don't think that Yam Yam is a clear, and that's my humble opinion, I don't think he's clearly got the votes over Carolyn at this point. And I don't even think between you and me, Kahuna, I'm not convinced that Yam Yam's done more than Carolyn in this game.
Well, that's because we see a lot more than what they're potentially seeing out on the island.
Yeah.
I think. I think you're right. Like, Jam Jam hasn't done more than Carolyn. He's probably put a wrong foot more than Carolyn and made mistakes more than Carolyn. So that's against him. But I just keep seeing that what the people out on the island, they don't respect Carolyn. I don't know if they're seeing what we see until this latest episode. And is that too little too late? That's what my fear is for Carolyn, that they're not seeing it until now, and then it's like, well, that's not really enough, you know.
Yeah. Jared here says Carolyn still has a threat there that could be small. If she plays it off well, she may not, though. Yeah, I guess she could. I think the problem is that she's come up to surface with that idol play, and that's where people are now going to take notice of her because she was one of the few people that actually kept it a secret until she played it. Jared says Carson has the best chance to win. However, if Lauren and Jamie really do recognize Carson as a threat to win, then Carson should be voted off next, not Carolyn. I agree. I think Carson is a massive threat. The only thing is, why I think that they're going to go for Carolyn first is because I don't think Yam Yam wants to lose Carson yet. We constantly see them talking together about strategy when Carolyn's not involved. And I feel like Yam Yam looks at Carson as his second. He probably knows he can't sit next to him at the end, but I don't think he will cut him next. I think he'll go for Carolyn next. And I think that's what the editor's showing us as well. Let's see a few more here. Jay says, for Jamie and Lauren to win, take out Yam Yam at 6 using Carson as a number, then Carson at 5, hoping he loses immunity, then put themselves into 5 to take out Carolyn at final 4 in fire making. That's a very good way, but that's tough. I don't think that both Jamie and Lauren has got the game in them. I haven't seen it strategically for them to go out there and do that. Jared says Matt had that underdog story last season and was a challenge piece. Didn't work for him because he was rather negative. And also, so we're talking about Australian Survivor Matt here. Australian Survivor Matt did not have the ability to articulate his game at the final tribal. And I think that's the thing that really cost him that game, was the fact that he couldn't articulate what he did. Chris says, wherever the votes land, I hope it isn't a blowout like a close vote at final tribal. Yeah, well, if we want a close vote, we need 2 Tikas.
Yeah.
At least there. I think that if there's one Tika with any of the others out there, it's going to be a blowout. But if you've got Carson and Yam Yam at the end, or you've got a Yam Yam and Carolyn, or any of the 2 of them there, I think it could be an interesting end. Carson is Yam Yam's nerd shield. Yeah, 100%. I don't think he wants to get rid of him in this next one. But we've gone on about this for quite a bit, and we've spoken about all 3 of the Tikas. I personally like the rankings as it stands right now, but do you want to sort of convince me in any other direction? Do you think that we pretty much have it spot on based on our observations of where Carson is sitting, being strategically, maybe not edit-wise, the front runner, because I think Yam Yam edit-wise is the front runner, but strategically how the board is laid out, he seems to be the most likely to get to the end of this point. And if he does get to the end, he probably has a very good shot at winning the game. I kind of feel like it's Carson's game to lose at this point.
Yeah, top 3. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, best position, best strategically, it has to be Carson. We're just not getting shown that that's how it's going to play out as far as the edit goes. So it just depends on what you're looking at. But you're right. As far as the pieces on the board that are left, I think that is the best power ranking of their chance and ability to get to the end and win the game. It's just not a guarantee that that's how it will play out. And there never is.
No,
we know
definitely.
that. But yeah, but I think that is the way it sits currently is probably the best 1 through 6 for sure.
Now, we're taking a risk here because we want to be true to where we see people sitting in the power rankings. If I had to guess who's going to go next, I do think there is a high likelihood that Carolyn could go next. If Carolyn does not go next, I can see it being one of the Ratu girls potentially going next if Heidi plays her idol. That's kind of where I'm thinking. It's one of those 3, either a Jamie, a Lauren, or a Carolyn. If Carson or Yam Yam goes out of the blue, that would be the shock of the season. We would have been completely wrong with how we see things.
But it's weird, right? Because that's how it should be. Like, why isn't like Danny and Heidi voted for Carson this week, which is really the only time it's come up. But why isn't everybody seeing Carson as the threat that he is? He's got the best threat management ever, like the way he's going with these people.
I think that Danny did see it and Heidi did see it. That's why they did end up...
Franny saw Tika's power as well, and
Franny did as well. I think Danny woke up to it a bit late, but I do think that he saw it. I think that it's not a case of them not seeing it. I just think Carson played such a good game with both Jamie and Lauren that they still felt like they could trust him. They still felt like he probably said, listen, you're my two girls. I want to bring you back in. I've been playing with Tika, but I feel the same allegiance towards you. I want to, he should go in sales after this, because I'm pretty sure he made a really good case with them. And is it them that is gullible, or is it just Carson that is playing that good? I'm not too sure, because the edit's not showing us, which again is why I'm questioning Carson's ability to win the game, because if he did win the game, they should have shown us more about what he did there to convince those two. And Jared here says they trusted Carson more than Danny. That is right. And then also Jared said Yam Yam was willing to lose Carson in this last episode. It was Carolyn saying we can't lose him yet. I think he was considering it, truly considering it. And I do think Yam Yam will go wherever he can. Chris is saying, don't put Carolyn's exit out into the world, Chris. Yeah, I know. I don't want it. I'm just putting it on the record so that if it does happen, I can say, see, I wasn't completely blindsided by it. It's a pride thing, okay? It's a pride thing. Let's read one more comment here. Jay says, in my opinion, it makes total sense for Yam Yam to go next. Final 6 in the new era has become a spot for a big threat to get taken out right before the final. Yam Yam fits that bill perfectly, just like Cody and Omar. And that's what I'm worried about, because I kind of see Carolyn as that threat more than Yam Yam. But listen, if it happened, I wouldn't be surprised, because for the longest period of time in Omar's season, I would say Omar is a very close. I could see a lot of Omar and Yam Yam, definitely, because I thought Omar was going to win that season. I was convinced he was going to win that season, just like I am kind of convinced at this point that Yam Yam is going to win this season. So I do get it wrong more often than not. If you're a Carolyn fan, don't fear. Gabe saying the preview is really right. Carolyn is safe. They're very rarely right, but I think every now and again. But I think every now and again they are right, just to keep us on our toes. So next time they can fake us out. But anyways, we're getting to the close of this power rankings here. So we have got the final power rankings at the moment. In 6th place, Lauren. In 5th place, Jamie. Followed in 4th place, Heidi. 3rd, Carolyn. 2nd, Yam Yam. And 1st, the biggest jumper here from this week, he came all the way up from 3rd to 1st this week, is going to be Carson. But it's always been between the 3 Tikas for most of the season in regards to where we think the vote is going to go at the end. So I'm excited to see how things play out here over the next week, Kahuna.
We've been right so far about him.
Yeah. We'll be back. At the end of this week. I'll be back with Jake, and we're going to be talking about the review for this latest episode of Survivor. I should also have our draft picks ready to go, so I'll update the points there. I think Kahuna is still killing us probably on that. He's been doing well this whole season. And then myself and Kahuna will be back over the weekend to talk about, I believe, the finale of the Challenge World Championship. It's come to an end very, very quickly.
Yeah. So big week. We got probably the penultimate for Survivor. How many left to Survivor after this?
2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, so
I think it's this one and next one.
We only got 2 left for Survivor, 1 left for the challenge, and then everything new starts again.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll catch you guys over the weekend. Thank you so much for everybody that jumped into the live. We really enjoy all the participation and all the different opinions. Chris, thank you so much for being back in the live and keeping everybody in check. I know everybody was well behaved tonight. But yeah, it's been great talking to everybody in regards to this. I know we all have our own opinions. This is only myself and Kahuna, how we're seeing the game play out now, but we're excited to see if we were right or wrong when next week comes and we do next power rankings. It would probably be the final power rankings, and where we will predict or try to predict who we think is going to win this season of Survivor. If you are new to the channel and this is the first time you've come across us, please consider subscribing. You've listened to us for an hour. We hope that we earned that subscription by the end of this hour. Consider liking, putting a notification bell on so you can be informed next time that we go live. And for now, say grab your torches, head back to camp, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.